Well, hello everyone. Welcome to another installment of our Sunday Tao study group meeting. It's out here in Southern California. We've had a little gray peeping through the clouds, or the clouds causing a bit of gray, I should say. But nonetheless, it's a beautiful day. As every once in a while we get a little ray of sunshine through the overcast. It's wonderful to be able to connect this way again. As always, I, for one, and I'm sure many of you feel the same way, truly enjoy sharing this time that we spend together for this couple of hours. So today, my presentation is entitled Alignment, and of course that's day 41 of the Tao of Joy Every Day. And the subtitle I chose is Gently Down the Stream. And the reason I chose that subtitle, as you'll find out as we go through this, is in this chapter, Derek makes a reference, or I should say an analogy, to comparing crewing or rowing a boat as a team to the theme of alignment. And for that reason, I selected Gently Down the Stream because the Tao really is sort of gentle and subtle. It's always there, and yet it's so incredibly powerful. But it doesn't it doesn't come out aggressively. It's gentle. It's always there. It's always available to everyone. And really, it's up to us to choose to be aware of it, to choose to try to understand it, understand its deep mysteries. Deep but simple mysteries, really, in a way. At least when they're put into practice, there's an incredible simplicity. But of course, before we get into that specifically, I'm going to do a quick review of day 40. And as we spoke, or as we talked about last week, or 2 weeks ago, rather, approaching life in a calm and detached manner does not mean that we don't care about the suffering of our fellow human beings. That's not really what detachment is about in the Tao sense of the word. And a mistake that sometimes people make is because I'm detached, therefore I don't care about anything, and that's not really the meaning at all. You know, Tao cultivators ultimately are not aloof or uncaring or without compassion for others. The Taoist idea of detachment is not about being ignoring or being oblivious to the real suffering that you don't have to look too hard to see in this world. And, you know, as Tao cultivators, what we really want to do is detach from the expectations of success and achievement. And in doing so, the Tao helps us create success and achievement. And of course, that definition doesn't have to be one where it's a measure. Often success and achievement in this world is measured by how much stuff you have or how much power you have or things like that. But really the success and achievement is obtaining harmony and oneness while each of us fulfills our destiny in this world. And so if you were going to put success and achievement in a Tao perspective, that would really be what sages do, really. They connect people, but they do so very subtly, very skillfully. And a big part of that is detachment and letting go of expectation. And we also talked about when we remove those expectations, we tap into the authentic power of the Tao. And success tends to naturally follow in whatever endeavors we choose. But ultimately, those endeavors bring about the connection, the unseen connection that we all have to each other. And, I just want to say a lot of the theme of detachment will come into play today, too, as we talk about alignment in J41 today. So, as I said, success will naturally follow, and it will appear to be effortless, to those who are not aware of the benefits that come from detaching from desire. So, of course, it is wise for us to be aware of the dangers of wanting success too badly, because often these intense emotions of wanting success and achievement puts a lot of stress on us, and it causes us to trip up and to make mistakes, missteps, because we become lost in the intense emotions that can often cloud our judgment to make the right decisions at the right times, to do the right things at the right times. But as we talked about, if you can focus on the process of taking right actions at right times, without being driven by desire for outcomes and achievement, or the wants of the ego, which can be a big hindrance to detachment. Often the ego stands in the way of truly detaching from outcome. But when we can do those things, success will ultimately naturally follow. Because ultimately, detachment is one of the Tao teachings. And as Bill has said many, many times, the success that comes from following the Tao teachings, it has a way, there's like a mathematical guarantee almost, that if you put those teachings into action, that you take them into your heart, and truly, with a sincere heart, cultivate the teachings of the Tao, it's almost a 100% thing that you will achieve a happier life for yourself, for those that you love, and for the world as a whole, too. I remember one time I was in a supermarket, and I encountered this really friendly person who worked at the supermarket, and he was so friendly and nice. We had formed we started to make a conversation, and he spoke how he had just moved to the city where the supermarket was, and how he said he wants to be one person who makes a difference in the world, who can change, the one person that can change the world. And I've always remembered it because I remember contemplating how right he was. Each of us has the power to affect the world, and you might think, well, for the most part, I think everyone who connects to this meeting is a fairly anonymous person, one of many. Probably Derek's the most famous of all of us, I would guess, being that he's an author in that sense. And yet, we all have the power to tap into the Tao, to change our lives, And in doing so, it ripples out. And sometimes we don't know the outcome of the things we say and the things we do. You know, this encounter with a stranger at a supermarket, it was years ago, at least 15 years ago, I would think. Yet I remember it to this day. He touched me. He spoke to, I don't know, a sacred part of me, I would say. So often in terms of destiny, detachment plays an important role. And a lot of that will sort of set up day 41, which I'm going to get into now. So day 41 is alignment, and as I mentioned at the top of the talk, Derek makes a reference to rowing a boat to convey the similarities of our relationship to the Tao. And I'm going to do something today that I don't normally do, and I'm actually going to read from the chapter because it's so well stated. So this will just take a moment as the chapters are fairly short. Day 41, alignment. Dragon boat racing of the East is similar to the sport of rowing in the West. For both alignment and unity mean everything. When a crew is aligned and all the oars row as one, the boat becomes an unstoppable force. It glides effortlessly, almost flying over the water, and it pulls ahead of other boats with the greatest of ease. Despite the physical exertion and constant motion, everyone in the crew feels a certain peace and serenity. Connected to one another in a way beyond the physical, crew members can feel an energy coursing through them and binding them together. If life is like a dragon boat race, then the Tao is the principle of alignment, and someone who understands it is the captain, bringing the right people together to form a crew. When they go into action, they move in perfect synchronization to the drum beats from the universal rhythm of the Tao. No matter what area of life they work on, this is a team that always wins the race. Their victory is a natural side effect of their unity in perfect alignment. The Tao today. Before you bring people together to form a crew, start by establishing alignment within yourself. The crew within you is composed of your experience, knowledge, skills, perception, intellect, emotions, intuition, and creativity. Bring this crew together in alignment with your purpose in life, and let your heartbeat provide the cadence. So I don't often, I think only one other time have I read verbatim from the Tao of Joy Every Day, but I wanted to today because it's just so beautifully expressed. And if you're one of the people in this meeting who haven't read the book yet, that's just one of 365 examples of how much this book has to offer. And when, of course, you see how the comparison or the analogy to rowing fits so well. And since I read that, I think Derek said everything you could say about that wonderful analogy. But it's funny, one of the things I thought of was a little bit different. So I'm going to share my own ideas that came to me as I read the chapter. And so what I thought of is something that I'm sure most of us are familiar with, which is driving a car. And at some point you've probably needed or had to have an alignment done to the car. And so what I thought of at first, the first analogy I came to was the actual alignment of a car itself, right? When a car is out of alignment, it often pulls to one side. As many of you may know, it's one of the ways you test to see if you need an alignment is you sort of cruise straightly, you let go of the wheel and brake somewhat suddenly and see which way the car pulls. If your alignment is good, the car won't pull at all, even though you hit the brakes rather suddenly. However, if you need an alignment, you'll feel yourself pull one way or the other. And that's something you can do on a uncrowded street, which in LA is harder and harder to find these days. This in turn, poor alignment, will lead to poor handling, an increase in fuel consumption, and a decrease in the lifespan of the tires. In short, the car doesn't perform at its optimal level as it was designed to do as it travels down the road. And by contrast, a car that is in good alignment will glide down the road smoothly. Tires will wear evenly. Not too much stress isn't put on them. The load is shared evenly as the car traverses, and this promotes better fuel economy, better handling, and ultimately the idea of a car in general also came to me. Besides just a specific example of alignment, that the various systems of the car team up and come together in unity and balance, making the journeys the car takes seem smooth and effortless. And so the other thing I thought of as a comparison when I read Derek's words was just the idea of an internal combustible engine and how it works. At a right time, a valve opens and a piston is driven down, and of course that can be you can start at any one of the four strokes of how an internal combustible engine works, but I'll start with the intake stroke. So the piston goes down and it draws in the fuel and the air, and then on the next stroke it comes up, which is the compression stroke, which just intensifies all that fuel and air mixture. And then at the right moment, the electrical system of the car fires the spark plug, and that it causes an explosion that drives the piston down. And of course, that's the power stroke. That's where the greatest amount of power comes down. And then of course, naturally after it goes down, it comes back up, pushing out the waste product. That's of course the exhaust stroke. And all of these things come together. Obviously you have many pistons, so each piston is on a different stroke at a different time, but they all sort of come together to work in harmony to turn that crankshaft to drive the car. And of course, every system of the car plays a role. The transmission, converts that raw energy out to the wheels. The handling of the car, the electric systems, the fuel system, all of that comes into play for everything that happens in that engine. And so too it is when we align ourselves with the Tao. And, Derek talked about you start with yourself, with the team within. And you might think, well, what's the team within? And as he said, it's unique to each of us, right? We all have different skills, different abilities, different ways of looking at things, different strengths, different weaknesses, all that. But we pull that together first within ourselves. And when you do that, each of those gifts and talents that we have, because it's never enough just to have raw talent. The analogy, of course, I think of is the old example that they give. If you take two baseball players, and one is has been very trained, and he runs to first base in a certain amount of time, and the other one has no training or form at all, and yet he matches the time of the one who's so skilled from years of practice. And of course, the idea is, well, who do you take? You take the one who basically gets there without any training. Because if you take that raw talent and you cultivate it through practice and effort and so forth, ultimately he's going to end up beating the other person. And that is an example. The reason why I bring that up is it's not enough to just rest on our natural born abilities. that we were all born with. It has to be cultivated. No matter how good you are, if you work at something, you'll make yourself that much better. And once you've built that internal team of your own talents and skills and creativity and all the things that Derek said, well, then you can start to ripple out. You can build a team of others. And when you start to do that, you start with the people closest to you, usually. And more understanding is gained. You start to see how life comes together, how things align. And that really is the Tao working its, I don't want to say magic, but I'll say magic. But it's not really magic. It's just the way it works. You don't even have to call yourself a Tao cultivator. You'll see Christians do it. You'll see Muslims do it. You'll see Buddhists do it. You'll see atheists do it. They're all tapping into the same thing. They're tapping into the Tao. They just relate to it in different ways. So I'm going to start to sum it up now, if I can. The alignment and unity that naturally arises from a team that is practiced together in harmony will make difficult tasks seem effortless. Just as when a team rows a boat in perfect synchronicity, we can also practice alignment and unity in our lives as we journey down our paths leading to our destinies. The important thing to understand is each of us has a destiny, even if we don't know what it is from the moment we're born or the moment we gain understanding. Often it takes time to work those things out. There's a faith and trust that you put in things. As I've spoken before, I'm an atheist, but obviously, I put my faith and trust in the Tao. And other people personify it more, and that's fine for them. Often I hear my Christian friends say, I'm just overwhelmed right now, so I'm just going to give this over to the Lord because that's all I know. There's nothing wrong with that. They're saying the same thing I'm saying. They're just saying it differently. But ultimately, it's the same message. Unity and oneness and alignment, sort of come together. The Tao brings those things about. And situations that seem difficult, oftentimes are the ones that require the most perseverance and faith. But when we sincerely cultivate, when we sincerely try to let go of expectations, even the ultimate expectation of letting go, so to speak, which on the surface may sound like double talk, but there's a lot of deepness there. When we let go, when we do good for the sake of good, without even having to think about it, that's when we approach how sages are. They just naturally do the right things at the right time without a lot of forethought. And it's because they've cultivated the Tao for many years in a skillful way that it just becomes natural. They become expert at it. The way you see people in sports who practice and cultivate that sport for many years and reach a high level of achievement. Often they can't tell you how they do it. And they don't even think about how they do it. They just do it. And it's very akin to how a sage moves through the world aligned to the Tao, cultivating calmness, awareness, the alignment and the unity and the oneness and the balance tends to follow naturally when we cultivate with sincere hearts. So being part of a team like that brings you into a state of peace and serenity. Despite the fact that the actual physical exertion is occurring, the oneness of working in perfect harmony with others or even with your own talents creates a positive energy that each team member or each part of your own being feels from being in a state of peace and serenity. And we start by cultivating calmness and awareness, and that will often create connection and allows you to begin the process of sharing that sacred part of yourself. It will ripple out to the world. And no matter how insignificant you may think you are, when you cultivate the Tao at a high level, that doesn't matter. And you will affect the world. You may not ever know. And frankly, if you don't, that's best anyway. But we're all here to be present for each other. We're here for each other. The oneness is always there. So when we accept and practice the Tao teachings consistently and without expectations, the Tao will align with us. Just as the teammates in the boat work together to propel the boat forward, the Tao will work with us to propel us forward through our lives as we achieve our various destinies. So when we unify with the Tao in perfect alignment, we move towards our limitless potentials. Recognize that this happens simply because the Tao is limitless. And in life, we often can encounter challenges that can sometimes seem overwhelming. But that's the time to persevere, to have faith in the process of living, to do your best to do the right things at the right time until it does become instinct. And when you do that, things will unfold as they should. And on the Tao's timetable. Okay, so I want to start to close things up now. So I want to start with an invitation. If you've learned from the Tao teachings, perhaps you'll be open to sharing what you have learned with others by presenting on a topic from the Tao perspective. Sharing the Tao insights you have learned with our Tao community has the potential to deepen your understanding and the understanding of others. You know, just as the gentleman I encountered more than a decade ago in a supermarket shared something with me that stuck with me. I doubt he knows that, but it doesn't make it any less true. So once again, I'd like to make a book recommendation, The Tao of Joy Every Day, a great book to use daily to help one study and learn the Tao teachings and put them into action. So there it was, day 41, alignment, gently down the stream. Thank you all for giving me the opportunity to speak with you this morning. I hope I said something that was of use, and I hope you all have a wonderful Sunday.
Thank you, Alex. When I saw the subtitle, Gently Down the Stream, I assumed that it was going to be something about life is but a dream, but I am glad to see this topic instead. Alignment, to me, it's a fun and exciting topic because it applies to everything in life. One doesn't need to be involved with the sport of rowing. You don't even need to be an athlete. If you are, good for you, but you don't have to be that. You can apply the Tao of alignment in every aspect of life. And I remember discussing this with friends years ago, and One particular friend was always kind of a Debbie Downer, was always kind of cynical, always kind of negative in his outlook. So he said, well, Derek, this sounds great, but I look around and I don't have a crew. I don't have people that can be in alignment with me. So it's a non-starter. It doesn't work for me. Now, another person in the discussion, another guy in the discussion stepped up and said, well, guess what? That's what I used to think, but I have since learned that the Tao works in mysterious but wonderful ways. Then he proceeded to tell us about his experience putting the Tao of alignment into practical application in his life. And let me convey that to the best of my recollection. He said, we, not that long ago, we just had a company-wide contest where every department was eligible to submit a video to showcase the work of that department. So to make it enticing, the company made available a Nashcast prize. So to be, in the direct deposit of everyone's salaries. And there was also nice gift cards, a healthy amount of dollar amounts in gift cards to restaurants. So people were buzzing about this. People were hoping that if their department wins, then they can benefit from the cash prize and the gift cards. So this guy said, I sat down with my team and we talked about this. We tried to brainstorm. And initially, it was definitely not looking good for us. They were saying, well, none of us had done this before. We haven't made videos. We know other departments have, and they got some really creative people, but we don't know anything about making videos. So guys, should we sit this one out? So they were pretty much ready to give up. Their heads were kind of hanging low. Their posture was far from inspired. But then this guy said, well, I remember from Tao teachings how much one's mental state can affect one's reality. So in this particular case, it was definitely true that attitude could either give rise to or prevent insights. If you have a positive attitude, you could give rise to ideas, insights. If your attitude was negative, it could prevent those insights from coming up because you would basically defeat yourself even before you start. It becomes like a self-fulfilling prophecy. Oh, I'm not creative. I can come up with ideas. And boom, you are right. You are right about yourself. But what if it was the other way? Same person. What if you were convinced that you were in touch with your own inner creative genius? Boom, you are right as well. So he opened himself up to ideas and inspiration struck almost immediately. He came up with an idea for the video that was creative and fun and not that difficult to do. So it excited everybody in his team. And then that's when the magic of the Tao, the magic of alignment occurred. Not really magic, it's just the way things work. But then the people in his team, they all stepped up too. One gentleman came up and said, well, listen guys, I bought a professional grade video camera to record my kids growing up, but I find that I haven't really used it that much. What I can use it for this, I can use it to make our video. Another guy said, well, hey, that's great. He said, I was always interested in video editing. I wanted to learn and practice, but I just never had anything to practice on. This could be perfect for me. In fact, I know the software I want to use. I will download it for myself tonight. And yet another guy came forward and said, well, you guys don't know this about me, but I'm actually a DJ in my spare time. He said, I have a soundboard, I have a mixer, I have access to sound effects. So at least on the audio part, I can make sure that it's professional. So it went on like that. And that that team, that crew materialized seemingly out of thin air. That people were drawn to this and they came into alignment on their own. So it illustrates another Tao principle in that when the time is right, when you are in alignment with the Tao, you don't need to go around looking for things in that active way. It would actually happen that things are attracted to you and come to you on their own. So that crew was an example of that. It came together on its own. So they did the work, they did the filming, they put in the sound effects, they did the film editing. The result surprised everyone. It looked so professional. Other departments submitted videos that seemed rushed, amateurish. In many cases, they were the work of a single individual in that department who films other people and then submits the results. That was it. In those cases, it was very obvious that it was not the work of a team working harmoniously together, like the video that this gentleman was involved with. So yeah, the contest was no contest. They easily won first prize. They were so happy with the cash prize, with the gift card, but more than that, they were happy about having done it as a team because they all felt what it was like to work together to row that boat, creating the video, to feel the energy coursing back and forth through every member of the team, moving in unison to a common goal. So I think Alex's presentation is great. The message of the Tao is great. It applies to everyone. And if you look around in your life in the weeks to come, I think you may also come up with opportunities where you can bring people into alignment. So keep your eyes open for that. So Alex, thank you so much for that wonderful presentation.